Ladies and gentlemen, please join us. We're about to get started, and take this opportunity to silence your cell phones. We will begin momentarily. Please welcome Senior Software Engineer at Troops, Aubrey Tatarowicz.
Hi. Ooh, it's not on the right slide. There we go. Hi, my name's Aubrey Tatarowicz, and today I'm going to talk about continuous discovery and innovation in Slack. And what I'm going to talk about today are the tips and tricks that we use here at Troops to build a product that our customers love, iteratively. First, a little bit about myself. My name's Aubrey Tatarowicz, and I'm a senior software engineer at Troops. I've been here about 2.5 years, and I previously worked at Google, and I studied computer science. Plus, I have this super cute doggo over here. So what is Troops? Troops builds workflows for customer-facing teams. And what that really means is we empower teams that maybe do sales or customer success to be more successful in Slack. And the way that we do that is we integrate with Salesforce, Google Calendar, News, and a couple of other things to bring the right information into the team's fingertips, right in Slack, so that they can do everything. They can get notifications and learn what's the most relevant. They can write back information they need to where most of their team works, like in Salesforce. But they can do all this right in Slack. 4 years ago, Troops was more of a concept. We're a fast-growing startup, but now we've helped over 1,000 companies to date, some really nice logos, and some of the fastest-growing startups use Troops because we make them more successful right in Slack. And for the rest of my talk, I'm going to talk about the challenges that many of us face when we're building software for consumers, ways to build products, ways that people have done it in the past, 5 strategies that we do at Troops that you can implement some of these strategies, or all of them, to become more successful, to build a product that your customers love, and results and key takeaways. And at the end of my talk, I will do Q&A. This is how you submit questions for Q&A. Go to slido.com, and you go into Spec 2019, and this is the plant track. So I'll take them at the end, but you can enter them throughout the talk or at the end of the talk. So building a product that people love is very difficult to do. Often, your customers don't actually know what they want. Even if they do, it's really hard to get that information from them and build the right product for them. And at the end of the day, if you take too long to get something out, then your customers may churn, or someone will beat you to the chase. So you do have to build the right thing, and you also have to build it quickly. So how have companies done this in the past, right? One thing that companies have done is this idea that if you build it, they will come. That you design whatever the product is that you want to build, then you just put your head down and build it, build it, build it, build it, and launch, without getting much feedback throughout the whole process. And we've seen that be not super successful in the past. That's not the way we want to do it. You could see what your competitor is doing, right? You could copy what they're doing. Maybe your competitor seems pretty successful, and you could try to chew off a piece of the pie, or maybe try to build it faster or slightly different. And ultimately, that's not very innovative, and generally doesn't make the best products, right? OK, well, or this is probably the winner, right? You could be customer focused and iterate on feedback. And that's what my talk is about. And we see companies do this today, right? Slack does this. And we at Troops are a Slack first company. And we also build for our customer iteratively. So how do you get started doing this? I'm just going to talk a little bit about MVP. It's just a way to kind of logic around the verbiage. But M, minimum, something small, right? V, viable, something that people find useful. And P, product, something that's in our customers' hands. Now, viable is pretty hard to figure out. It's often subjective. And then there's this balancing act between what's viable and what's the smallest thing you can get out. And so this is sort of the struggle and what we try to learn through experimentation here at Troops. So in the rest of my talk, this is the meat of the talk, that I'm going to go through 5 strategies to build a product, focusing on your customer, to build a product that they really love. And the first strategy that we do is we cut scope, and then we cut it again. And what we try to do is build the one thing that is the highest leverage right now for our customers. And this, we're not trying to hit viability right now. This is not an MVP. This is just something that we put into our customers' hands and try to get feedback from. And what we do is we just aim for the most high leverage things we can build right now. So an example, since we work with customer-facing teams, many of our customers are sales teams, and so they go to a lot of meetings. So they'll go to a meeting, sales rep will go to a meeting, and then they'll go to another meeting, and another, and it just sort of piles on top. And there's all this information that they've collected throughout the day, and they need to somehow put that into where everyone else can see the information. And for our customers, that's Salesforce. Salesforce can be sort of clunky sometimes when you're on the go. So we wanted to solve this problem for our customers. And we're figuring out what's the highest leverage thing that we can get in front of them. And for us, it was a way to log these call notes right in Slack. And the very first version of this was literally a message like this. And we didn't actually hook into any calendar. What we ended up doing is constructing a message. And for most of you, you know that building out a message with this copy in Slack is very easy to do, because we're building on the Slack platform, and this is very low effort. So what we did was we put this message together with an example of information we might want to include with a button that says Log Notes. And a final product is going to have a way to configure this somehow. When do you want to get these? What sort of information do you want to see? And what sort of information do you want to record? The very first version didn't have any of that. What it had was this message that we could send as a direct message to one customer. And it had this internal interface that only we can see. It's not very pretty. But what it is a way for us to look up one user. And we already have the piping to send a direct message to a customer by pressing this button right here. And so we built out this message and the ability to send it. So our product team will get a customer on the phone, and they'll ask, hey, can I show you something? We're thinking about building this thing called meeting workflow, and it's a way to log meeting notes much easier right in Slack. And can I send you a message? So they send this message to our customer, and this is something they can play around with. It feels a lot more robust than a clickable prototype, because they have this message in Slack. It kind of is a clickable prototype, except because we're leveraging the Slack platform, it feels more real, and we can get some more real feedback. And so a customer can go through the flow, they press the button, they see this dialog box, very familiar to everybody here. They can log their notes and press submit, and they get an updated message. And from this, we learned that this was a really great product. Our customers were really excited about something like this. But we heard from them what their workflow might be like. And it informed what an MVP or a final product looked like just by showing them this and getting them on the phone. We learned things like some of our customers want to get this message before the meeting, because they actually take calls right at their desk. They can open the dialog box from their desk and put the notes in live. Others are going to hop into a lift between meetings, and this allows them to log their notes in 30 seconds right in Slack. But not everything works. Sometimes these experiments are failures, and you need to know when to rip something out that doesn't work, and we do that as well. So because we work quickly and we do this experiment framework, we remove things that don't work, and we're not afraid to do so. That saves us from incurring a lot of technical debt down the line, and it makes sure that whatever our customers have in their hands is delightful and something they enjoy using. One of the things we tried to do was a smart bot experiment. And this experiment was something we want to do is build a bot that is conversational and gives you the information when you need it. This is an example of how we wanted it to work. I might write in a channel, hey, Paul, when's the next meeting for Apple? And maybe Paul's busy, so I don't get the information right away. But the Troops bot knows when the next meeting with Apple is, so the Troops bot replies right away and gives me relevant information. Hi, Aubrey. This is the time and the place. That's great. I'd love to have something like this giving me the right information as quickly as possible. So we tried to build something like this. We plugged in a third-party natural language processing API and then built a framework to listen and reply to messages on the go. Again, this experiment didn't take very much time. It was quick to get out to our customers, about a few days to a week. But this is what it looks like in the wild. This is Kevin. He's on our sales team, and he said in the channel op central perk, they're fairly active with a good amount of workflows, and they've got their production use up and running. So what Kevin's talking about is how a customer is engaged in our product. Workflows is how they set up and send information within Slack, within Troops. And so he's talking about engagement. But the Troops bot says, oh, I know. I see the word amount, and I know that this is in the central perk channel, so I'm going to give you relevant information. This isn't great. It has absolutely nothing to do with what Kevin was talking about. This response here is not ideal. And it bothered our customers. It's spammy. We can't leave this on. Once the excitement rubs off that you have this bot automatically replying to words that you type in a channel, when it's irrelevant and spammy, we got to get rid of it. So that was a failure. We moved on. Because we do this experiment framework, we just ripped it out, and our customers are no longer bothered or spammed by this sort of experiment. The third strategy that we use is that our QA environment is actually our production environment. And that can seem kind of scary. But what it enables us to do is to work very quickly. We don't have 5 different stacks with different versions of our code running, and then we have to go and merge them at the end and put that in our real prod for our customers. That can cause bugs. It definitely makes it a lot longer to get to production. And one of the most amazing things about building on Slack is that as soon as your code is in production, your customers see it, right? They don't have to install anything new. They already have the Slack app, or they already have the web interface, right? They already have Slack, and as soon as you change the logic underneath the hood in your backend, they get the new logic. That means if you change when we're going to send things or how we respond to slash commands, as soon as we put that in production, our customers see it. And that's what we like to do. We like to get things out as quickly as possible and learn even faster, right? So we built our own bot to deploy right in Slack. It does all the steps that we need to do to push to production. In this screenshot here, you can see that this particular deployment took 13 minutes. And that allows us, 13 minutes is when I want to push something out, and it's live and my customers can see it. And what you can also see is the title of this pull request, the code that went live. It says, handle nudge message button presses. What this implies is that we launched a really small piece of code. we also were building incrementally on top of other code that was already out there. And continuously deploying to production allows us to do that. We build these blocks of functionality and get into our customers' hands as quickly as possible. But launching to production can be kind of scary. So how do we do this safely? And what we do, besides continuous deployment, is we use feature flags. So who out here uses feature flags in their production environment? Nice. Quite a bit of you. It's pretty awesome. Feature flagging, for those of you who may not know, is a way to roll something out darkly. So you can put the new code out in front of your customers or out into production, but you don't have to enable it. So essentially, you haven't rolled out anything new yet. You've rolled out the new code, but you haven't turned it on. And this becomes a lot safer because you can turn it on when it's ready. Maybe you have a few more iterations to get the code to be production ready and enabled for your customers. Or maybe none of us write bugs, but maybe you did write a bug this one time ever. You can turn it off if it doesn't work, right? And that's sort of the magic of feature flags. We use Launch Darkly, which is a great tool for feature flagging. You could use anything else. You could build your own mechanism for feature flagging. But what this allows us to do is turn feature flags on for whoever we want. We have very fine-grained control. So in this screenshot, it refers to the deployment I showed you earlier. And I have this enabled for myself, Aubrey, my prod account, and it's turned off for everyone else. And what this allows me to do is test what I rolled out earlier. I rolled out updated logic to this button, but I'm not going to show it for customers until it's ready. And this is sort of the magic of feature flagging. You turn things on when they're ready. So what I'm going to do is kind of walk you through a demo of what this looks like. Now, we've been building an approvals product for our customers. And high level, this approvals product allows someone to approve or reject right in Slack. Because we all know we don't want to go and do that in email because everything gets lost. So this approvals product lets you do this. And in the sales world, approvals are often used for discounts. You want to make sure that the higher-ups are OK with the discount that you've applied, or maybe there's legal review. All of these things need approval, and it's important to keep these processes moving along so you don't lose a contract. This screenshot here, this is our front end, what people use to build workflows within Troops. And what you can see, well, there's a workflows tab. That's one of our main products. There's a deal rooms tab. There's Troops on command. That's our /command configurations. And there's a team tab. But what there is not is an approvals tab. And so I'm going to show you how we would launch this for our customers. So I switched tabs in my browser. This is all on the web. And this is Launch Darkly. So I go down here, and I add a rule. I say if the email is my email, set it to true. And for everybody else, I've set it to false. So I save it. I switch back to the other tab, and I refresh the page. And there you go. We've launched approvals to our customers just like that. So now I just turn it on for myself, because when I took this video, we hadn't launched it. But this allows me to turn it on for myself or other customers or product team to make sure everything works correctly before we show it to the rest of our customer base. And that brings me to our fourth strategy. We put our customers to work for us. And what that means is we show some customers before others what we're building. We call this our alpha program. When we talk to customers and they say they really want a new product, and for example, I'm going to walk through approvals for this, they really want approvals. So we bring them into our alpha program. And we'll work very closely with them while we launch little pieces of functionality. And they help us figure out, one, what's an MVP, and two, what's a really nice, delightful product to launch to our entire customer base. And they want to work with us because they're already really engaged with Troops, and they know what we deliver is a high-quality product. They also want to give a little bit of their own input because it's going to work better for them. So the way that this looks is we build something, and we ship that to production behind a feature flag. Once it's in production, we gather feedback. Now, the way that we gather feedback is a few different ways. Our product team will get the customer on the phone, and they'll talk to them and ask them how they're using something. Maybe they'll share screens and iteratively kind of talk through and figure out what works and what's not working. We also have Slack channels with our customers. So any given time, they can give us feedback about what's working, what's confusing, what's missing, and we can learn from them that way. And we also have a lot of logs. So a customer may say that they really like something, but if they're not actually pressing any of the buttons, or they're not engaging with whatever we've sent, then they're not actually using it. And that's really useful information too. Why aren't they using it? And so we use all these pieces of feedback, and then we decide, is this complete? Is this a product that we want to launch to the rest of our customers? And generally, I can tell you 100% of the time, the first time we go through this cycle, it definitely is not. We need to build more, and that's the point. We probably didn't even try to make an MVP the first time. So we build more, but we're using information that we've gathered along the way from our customers to inform what the next piece is that we build. So we do this cycle a few more times. And so for the very first example, for approvals, the first thing we built was sending an alert, a notification to an approver, to approve or reject. And they could enter the feedback in a dialog box. And that was great. They liked that functionality. But they needed more. They needed more context. So we built more context. We gave them more information in the message. We gave them history of what's happened so far. And that was great. And we iteratively build more functionality into this product. And eventually, they give us a thumbs up and they say, this is great. We see the engagement in our backend. We see all the logs that they're actually using this, and they're using it successfully. And we feel really good. We've really beat up the product ourselves. And once we get to that point, now we feel like we're complete, and then we launch it. So we use this iterative cycle to gather feedback from our customers to really figure out what it is that addresses their pain points or really excites them. We always want to put something in there that delights them as well before we launch. This helps us get to the final product much faster. And the fifth strategy, this is very important, is that we don't worry about scalability at first. I know as engineers, we want to build the most scalable thing every single time, but sometimes it's not practical. You can build something that doesn't scale a lot faster. And so the name of the game for us is learning quickly. We'll understand how to scale, but we won't have to do that in the first go-around. And this ties back to launching really quickly and throwing things away. You don't want to spend an entire quarter building a super robust system that you just end up throwing away because no one used it. You don't need to serve 1 million users if you don't have one user, right? And so we understand how we'll scale, and we do it later. And that's one of the magic things with feature flagging, right? Because if we know this isn't going to scale to more users, then we don't turn it on for all of them. We'll turn it on for a subset and learn and build a more scalable solution before we launch it to our entire customer base. So why do we think this works? This is how we build our product, but what are the results of this? We asked our customers, would you be disappointed to stop using Troops? And most of them would be kind of bummed to lose our product. 87% would be bummed to not use Troops anymore. And we're really happy about these results. Qualitatively, we get this all the time from our customers. So they send us messages unprompted that they're really excited to use a new thing. Or, I really like this one on the bottom right. Excited for more releases like this down the line. Also happy to be a beta tester for anything new that you're working on. I'm not afraid of bugs. And this ties into our alpha program, because our customers are really excited to try out whatever we're building. And they're OK with a little bit of rough edges if they know that they're getting something they need from us. So to sum it up, the 5 things that we do is we cut scope. And we cut it down to the smallest thing possible because we want to figure out what the highest leverage product or feature we can get out to our customers is and get it out as quickly as possible. Then, if something doesn't work out, we throw it out. We're not afraid to throw things away, and it helps keep us from incurring more technical debt along the lines, and it makes sure to keep things that don't work out of our product. We QA in production. We use feature flags to make this safer, but ultimately, we want to go as quickly as possible to learn more quickly. And that's why we test in production. And we use alpha testers. We leverage this feature flagging in this quick deployment process to get early feedback from customers. And they help us understand what an MVP is iteratively and help us understand what is a delightful product that we're going to launch to our customers at the end of the day. And finally, we scale later, after we know that it's worth it. Since we throw things out, we don't want to make the scalable solution the first time around. If it's easy, definitely going to do it the first time around. But generally, it's not. So we scale after we know that it's worth it. So these 5 things can seem a little bit overwhelming to do. It might seem like a lot to do, and maybe some of these aren't practical in your organization. But you don't have to do all 5. You can pick and choose what works for you, because any of these really can be done by themselves. And they're going to make your product better. Thank you. And here's some information where you can learn more. And I'll point out one of the interesting ones down here is testing in prod. That's a talk about our deployment process and the tool that we use to deploy right in Slack, given by Scott Underwood. So it's a pretty interesting talk. Yeah, I'm happy to take questions. So I have this iPad over here. Let's see. Any questions? I don't have any on here, so. No? Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry?
The questions are here.
Oh, OK, they just popped up.
Yeah.
I see them now. They weren't. There's a little lag. OK. All right, the first question I have is, what is your threshold for feedback? And how do you make sure you're getting just the right amount so you can continue making progress? That's a really good question. It really depends on whatever it is that we're building. A lot of times, we work really closely, and that's kind of some of the magic with our product team at gathering feedback. But we really try to pull information from our customers. It's very similar to kind of questions you would ask when you're building out clickable prototypes. But how would you expect this to work? Does this work for you? Some of the more qualitative ways that we do it is in our logs. So we put links out to more information. So in the case of Salesforce, we'll link to the information in Salesforce. Ideally, they don't need to click that. So we track if they're clicking out of the message. And that gives us information that we're not showing them everything they need to know. Other than that, yeah, we just push for more information, yeah. And how long are your iteration cycles? How do you select which customers to get feedback from? And what channels do you use for gathering feedback? OK, so our iteration cycles vary. For getting a clickable prototype type thing out that I was showing you, that takes about a week to do, a little bit less. And so we'll get that out. The approvals product took about a quarter to build, and we iterated with them. We got on calls, our product team got on calls every 2 weeks to just touch base on whatever they've gotten so far. And for the channels, we have a workspace called, I'm blanking on it. We have a Troops Alliance. Yeah, we have a workspace called Troops Alliance. And so when we bring someone into an alpha program, we create a dedicated private channel with all the people involved on the product engineering team as well as all the team that we're working with. And so we use that for gathering feedback within Slack. And oh, it just popped up. There was another part of that question. I don't know, I lost it. It went away. How do you handle new features released by Slack? When or how do you adopt them and make sure it will be a good fit for your app? Yeah, we do. We have in the past worked closely with Slack on launches. We did with the dynamic menus in Slack. And so sometimes we partner, and we're a partner on the launch. Other than that, we incorporate new launches like BlockKit when it makes sense. So right now, we're incorporating that because it adds more. The BlockKit modals is going to add more functionality, right? It's going to add the date picker and multi-select. And so that's something our customers really want. And we'll be implementing that into our code soon. OK, I like this one. How do you deal with internal fear? Oh, there it goes. How do you deal with internal fear behind testing and prod? Yeah, it's interesting. I think that's a really personal question. I can only speak for myself. And so I used to work at Google, on Google Maps. And I broke production like on my 3rd week there. So I got over the fear of testing and prod like pretty quickly. But I think it's really education around feature flags. Everyone's going to break production. And then they're going to be more diligent about using feature flags to guard their code correctly. Because at the end of the day, a feature flag is only as good as the code you're like, if you don't wrap it right, then it doesn't do anything. So I think everyone has to break production, then you stop being afraid of it because it wasn't so bad, and you fix the problem. How do you plan? Do you operate in sprints? We do. We work in 1-week sprints. So we plan the work for that sprint and then try to hit it. We also do quarterly planning. So we have goals for the whole quarter to launch our products. And in general, we launch our products to the customer base when they're ready. We still have goals. They're usually around quarter boundaries to launch the overall product. But we do really iteratively work with our alphas on a sprint-by-sprint basis. How do you identify the most valuable feature to develop? Oh, I remember the question that got erased, and it's related to this. So we gather a lot of feedback from our customer success teams and our sales teams about what customers want, and we keep that information. So in the case of approvals, the way that we picked our alphas was that these are customers that said, hey, I really need this. These could have been customers that churned because they couldn't sign with us until we had built out a product like this. So we'll reach out to customers that have given us strong feedback that they need a particular product, and that's how we figure out if they're the right fit for an alpha. And there's a commitment on both sides. So you don't just get into the alpha program without having a commitment on your end, because we need feedback, and it goes both ways. We're delivering a product iteratively to you, and our customers are going to have to talk to us and give us information about what's working and what's not working to have something like this. Yeah, and so it's more like for the most valuable feature to develop, it's around ranking how often we've heard feedback around what we need to build. And our product team does a really good job of discovery on this front. So they'll learn what our customers are, what they really need, and then figure out what we need to build. OK, regarding QA and prod, how do you make sure a new feature does not affect existing working ones? Yeah, we do have integration tests and unit tests, but the main way that we make sure a feature doesn't affect new ones is feature flagging. So when you get used to using them, it becomes a lot easier to make sure that you're gating everywhere that you need to gate. And that's the biggest part. So we generally make sure that the old path and the new path work as expected. So if we're not going to change the old path, then we expect that it continues to work as it used to work. OK. What NLP framework? I don't know which one. Scott, do you know? No. We ripped it out a little while ago. OK. This one is, do you ever enable features for specific pilot customers and have to remove it after deciding that feature isn't something you're going to continue with? Yeah, we have. Well, the example of the bot, the smart bot that we tried to launch, we enabled it for our internal sales teams and a couple other customers. And then that didn't work very well, so we ripped it out. And it's much better that we don't have it because it was spammy. And this is the last question. Do you clean up code and remove feature flags for older features? Yeah, we do that. We do quarterly planning, so a lot of times we have this week where product is doing a lot of research and engineering's helping kind of scope things. But we do a lot of cleanup then too. So we clean up throughout. If there's like a lot of logic that needs to be ripped out, then we account for that when we're planning whatever we're building. But other times we clean up the code around quarterly boundaries often. So that means ripping out the feature flags because we feature flag very granular. So we could have 40 or 50 at a given time, and we need to rip out the ones that don't actually get flipped anymore. So, wow, really good questions. Thank you. That's it. And yeah, check out some of these links. Have a great day.